How's everyone doing today? It's your boy JJ Domination. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do so immediately and check out all the latest content on the channel and check out all the content in general. See what you like, man. But happy Easter to everyone. I'm recording this on Easter morning. I realized last episode everything was good. Like, I uploaded it, everything was great. The title was wrong. It's supposed to be recapping days 6 and 7 of the 2018-2019 NBA playoffs. Just a little typo right there. Am I going to change it? No. I'm going to keep it up there. People make mistakes. We're going to be covering 4 games that happened yesterday. So this will be technically recapping day 8 of the playoffs. So I'm going to make sure I fix that this time. The Philadelphia 76ers stayed in Brooklyn to take on the Nets. The 76ers ended up walking away 112-108. So a pretty close game down the stretch. I didn't really get to watch this game in its entirety, but I saw like little pieces here and there, you know. But we do know that Joel Embiid went off for 31 points, had 16 rebounds as well. Tobias Harris keeping up the good scoring, 24 points for him. Ben Simmons had 15 points and 8 assists and 8 rebounds as well. Also, Jimmy Butler with 11 points. Off the bench, Mike Scott had 8 points. And you go to the Brooklyn Nets, of course. They had 3 scorers with 20 points or more. You had Jarrett Allen with 21, D'Angelo Russell with 21, and Karis LeVert, who they added to the starting lineup, with 25 points. Joe Harris had a little 10 points, and then Jarrett Dudley had 8. Interesting, they switched the starting lineups, of course. A guy that wasn't a starting lineup, Karups, I don't know how to say his name, but he was in the starting lineup at power forward in game 3, and he didn't even play in this game because of coach's decision, not necessarily because he was hurt. And a thing that's kind of frustrating is they're not playing Shabazz Napier. You know, he's having a career year in points, and they haven't been playing him. I know they have a lot of guards out there, but you can run lineups with Shabazz Napier and Spencer Dinwiddie, and you can play Karis LeVert at the small forward position. You know, it's not anything too major. You can definitely pull that off. But I guess that's just their decision. I mean, that's coach's decision. You know, Spencer Dinwiddie did have 18 points off the bench. DeMarre Carroll, who was in the starting lineup, he is now coming off the bench, I guess, for Jarrett Dudley. I like DeMarre Carroll in the starting lineup. You know, he is a veteran. He's more athletic, more faster than Jarrett Dudley, and to me a little bit more consistent. But in this game, you know, DeMarre Carroll didn't necessarily prove that because he only had 2 points and he didn't make a single field goal. Speaking of percentages, we're going to go over it for every game. Philadelphia shot 50% from the floor exactly, and about 31% from 3, while Brooklyn shot 40% exactly from the field and 31% from 3. So it was just a tough game for Brooklyn. Like I said, you know, they almost won it, but that's a game you definitely want to win. I mean, it's on your home court. Now, if you want to have a chance to stay in this series, you have to win the next 3 straight, and I just don't see that happening. Brooklyn, you know, casual fans won't give Brooklyn their credit, but they have been one of those teams that have fought hard all season. They get drawn a tough matchup. They stunned the Philadelphia 76ers in the first game, and outside of game 2, I would say, I don't know if it was game 2 or game 3 exactly, but outside of one of those 2 games, I mean, they've been fairly competitive games. It's not like Brooklyn has been getting outmatched or blown out. You know, it's been pretty close. Next, speaking of pretty close, this game wasn't necessarily the closest, but Denver defeated San Antonio, making it a 2-2 series. They beat them 117-103. It was a big night for Nikola Jokic. He had 29 points and 12 rebounds and 8 assists. And then, of course, Jamal Murray chipping in with 24 points. The story of this game was Torrey Craig. He ended up starting in this game. And I think he was starting in the place for Will Barton. And he ended up scoring 18 points on 5 of 7 from 3. He also chipped in with 8 rebounds. And then off the bench, not really a whole lot of scoring off the bench outside of Will Barton and Monte Morris. Will Barton had 12 points. Monte had 11. Isaiah Thomas has not even been playing either. I mean, they're deep, man. They're so deep that they're not even playing Isaiah Thomas. That's crazy. You look at the Spurs, though. LaMarcus Aldridge had 24 points in 29 minutes. DeMar DeRozan had 19 points, but of course he was ejected from the game. Bryn Forbes only had 10 points, and the great Derek White would respond to his 36-point performance by having 8 points. Patty Mills did have 12 points off the bench, but that's about it. The Spurs struggled to shoot in this game, and that was really the reason why they lost pretty much. I mean, 45% from the field for Denver and 48.4% from three for Denver. Meanwhile, at San Antonio, they're about 47% from the field and 29% from three. A lot of it has to do with DeMar DeRozan getting ejected, but also, I mean, if you're not hitting your shots, that's going to hurt you in most cases. Next, we're going to talk about another series. So there's an interesting turn to this Milwaukee-Detroit series. Blake Griffin returned to action. A lot of people speculated that he probably wouldn't be playing in this series. Game 3, they're in Detroit. They're at home. Blake Griffin ends up starting. He ended up returning. He ended up playing. And Detroit still lost, though. It was 119-103. Milwaukee won. But we'll go over the Pistons first, since Blake Griffin ended up returning. Blake Griffin came back, and he put up 27 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists. So you can clearly tell he's easily the best player on this team. I mean, Andre Drummond's good. Really good. But he's not like the guy that's going to drop 30 points, He's a guy that can get you about 17, and he'll get you a lot of rebounds as well, block some shots. He's not like a scorer. That's Blake Griffin's game. And, but yeah, Blake Griffin came in and did that. Andre Drummond had 12 points and 12 rebounds. Reggie Jackson had 15 points. Wayne Ellington had a little 13. And Luke Kennard had 9 points. So that's interesting. And off the bench, Ish Smith had 11 points. The team shot 38.5% from the field and about 30% from three. Meanwhile, let's look at the Milwaukee Bucks, the team that ended up winning. Chris Middleton had 20 points on 3 of 6 from 3. Giannis barely played. He played like 28 minutes. He only got 14 points and 10 rebounds. But, it just goes to show you this team is so dominant that he doesn't need to play that much to be effective. Brook Lopez had 19 points. I believe he had 5 blocks as well, which is pretty impressive. Eric Bledsoe had 19 points. And then off the bench, Ersan Ilyasova had 15 points. Nikola Mirotic in 14 minutes was able to get 12 points. And then George Hill got 11. Milwaukee shot about 37% from the three-point line and 49% from the field altogether. So Milwaukee, the better shooting team, and overall just the better team. I mean, Detroit's going to get beaten 4. Milwaukee has been very dominant, and they're going to face another team that's been pretty dominant, Boston. They're up 3-0, as you guys may have figured out from the last episode. Finally, we have the Houston Rockets versus the Utah Jazz. This series has been very interesting because every game has essentially been like a 20-point loss for Utah. But this time, it was a lot closer. As a matter of fact, the Rockets still won, but it was like a 3-point loss for the Utah Jazz. They ended up losing 104-101. So a lot closer. James Harden had a terrible start. He started the game 0 of 15. That is the most consecutive shots missed in a playoff game. He did finish the game 3 of 20, 2 of 13 from 3. Normally when your superstar player is not shooting the ball well, you typically lose. But that's the power of going to the free throw line for James Harden. And no, I'm not complaining that James Harden goes to the free throw line a lot. What I'm saying is, if you can't make a shot, the thing that you have to hope for is if you drive to the hole and you get fouled, then you can go shoot your free throws. And a guy like James Harden, who has one of the higher free throw percentages for a guy that takes as many shots as he does from the free throw line, he's going to make it. So he had 22 points when it was all said and done. But, outside of free throw attempts, he probably had about 8 points, basically. And like I said, I'm not hating. I mean, that's just how it happened. But if you look at the rest of the starters, every starter scored in double figures. PJ Tucker had 12 points and 10 rebounds. Clint Capella had 11 points and 14 rebounds. Chris Paul had 18 points as well, and then Eric Gordon had 12 points. And off the bench, Austin Rivers chipped in with 11 points. This Rockets team, they shot, about 33% from 3 and 38% from the field. Meanwhile, the Utah Jazz, outside of Donovan Mitchell, no one seems to be able to know how to score the ball. I really like this starting lineup, though. Let me tell you, they finally listened to me. It's like the Utah Jazz organization watches my videos. Derek Favors came off the bench. I tried to tell people that Derek Favors was going to be a non-factor in this series as a starter because they're going to force him to be a perimeter player, and he's just not a perimeter player. So they switched out Derek Favors for Jay Crowder. Even though he didn't have a good game starting, the offense is better with him out there because he can stretch the floor. Derek Favors can't. He's taking up space on the inside for Rudy Gobert. But anywho, Jay Crowder only had 5 points. But let's just get to the nitty-gritty of it. Donovan Mitchell had 34 points. Derek Favors, coming off the bench, played better. He had 13 points. Rudy Gobert had 10 points, and Ricky Rubio had 10 points. Joe Ingles only had 8 points. The Jazz only shot 29% from 3 and 41% from the field. So Utah, this was a bad series for them. And, I want to say last playoff series was a little bit more competitive. But, like last year when they both played each other in the second round, it was more competitive. But bad look at the draw this year. You have James Harden playing like on a whole nother level, and those role players are knocking down their shots. Meanwhile, for Utah, outside of Donovan Mitchell, there's no one who can consistently be that number 2 scoring option. It's not Rudy Gobert. Joe Ingles, some nights you think it's going to be him, but it's really not. Utah needs like another really good scorer in their starting lineup. They may be a team where Donovan Mitchell has to run the point guard, and they need to get like another shooting guard, a guy that's just going to shoot, a guy that can score as well. Rubio is a nice complementary point guard, maybe off the bench for this team. But I think if you want to take this team to the next level, you have to get another dude that can shoot in your lineup, a guy that can score, get his own basket. Rubio is not that type of point guard. That's why I think Donovan Mitchell should run the point guard, position. But that's something they'll have to address next season because one more loss and they're done. So it doesn't matter. Some games that'll be going on today, I believe Golden State and the Clippers will play again. Portland and OKC will be playing today. Boston, Indiana, I think will be playing in Toronto, Orlando. So it'll wrap up all the game 4s, I believe, for teams. I believe. I'm not 100% sure. So we could be seeing teams getting swept today, which that's going to be interesting. Some teams could be swept today. Indiana's in fear of being swept, and that's it. I think every other series is 2-1 leaning to a certain team. Like Golden State's up 2-1, Portland's up 2-1, and I think Toronto's up 2-1. So yeah, Indiana's the only team today that's in danger of getting swept. But let me know how you feel about the playoffs down below. And based on the current records of teams, like Milwaukee's up 3-0. Boston's up 3-0, Philadelphia's up 3-1, Toronto's up 2-1, Golden State's up 2-1, Houston's up 3-0, Portland's up 2-1, and then it's tied right here at 2-2 between Denver and San Antonio. Let me know which series has the most potential to go to 7 games. Peace out.